Hello and welcome back to the AFL High Performance Podcast. My name is Jack McLean and I'm your host today, and I'm lucky enough to be joined by Dan Lawson, who's our guest. We'll be discussing everything you need to know when it comes to transitioning from physiotherapist or the medical realm to performance in the high performance manager role, touching on NRL experience and Dan's journey in high performance sport. So if you're tuning in live, feel free to send through some questions and we'll find some time a bit later on to answer them. But welcome, Dan. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to having a chat.
For those tuning in, no doubt there'll be a fair few. I know we got some good LinkedIn engagement, mate. Those that you've worked with in the past or cross paths with that will be well aware of your background. But I guess for those that aren't aware, I guess take us back. Where did you find your passion for high performance and physiotherapy, and yeah, take us through different work experiences you've had so far in your career.
Yeah, no worries. I guess going back sort of before my career started, I was a keen rugby union player. So I was a mad footy player. I just wanted to play rugby and play for the Wallabies, and that was all I was thinking about as a kid growing up. And then sort of once I sort of finished school and got through uni, and probably realised that I was too slow and not talented enough to be a footy player. I sort of headed down the physio role. I was always keen on sport, keen on health, and keen in the gym. I guess getting fitter and stronger. Yeah, so from there, obviously did the physio degree. Soon after that, I sort of got into private practice down here in Wollongong. And then soon after that, sort of a year into that, I was in the right place at the right time and got a start at the Dragons. Andrew Gray is a good friend and mentor of mine. So it gave me an opportunity there back in 2008. I was working in the private practice next door. I sort of jumped across and did sort of 2 or 3 hour shifts a week, helping him back in the early days, 2008. Excuse me. And the role at the Dragons just sort of grew a little bit year by year. I was still working pretty much full time in the clinic. Transitioned into buying into a successful physio clinic down here in Wollongong with a good friend of mine, Mick Baines. Yeah, and so over the 2008 to 2012 period, the footy side of it, grew from being a few hours to being full time. So it sort of transitioned to full time with the Dragons in 2012. I think it was Andrew Gray who was the physio, moved on to being the high performance manager once Jeremy Hickman's and Wayne Bennett left. So I still worked in the clinic for pretty much 10, 15 years for that period. So it's full-time sport, but still, there's full-time sport, but there's still another, I don't know, between 10 and 20 hours a week to try and squeeze in going back to the clinic and, seeing patients, and back in the dark old days that were all a bit of a blur.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to do both, to be able to to own or be a part owner of a physio clinic, and also progress my career, and which I knew by that stage is what I wanted to do, was to have a career in sport as a physio at that stage. I always sort of in the back of my mind had I was keen on S&C and more involved in the rehab space of physio, rather than the traditional hands-on clinical physio approach, I guess. Yeah, so I was really fortunate. So I guess from the Dragons, 2015, got an opportunity at Cronulla with Shane Flanagan and some really good stuff up there. Andrew Gray had moved up to there at that point. So worked with some really good people up there. Matty J, who's working with you now. Scott Campbell, some really good guys. I had some really successful years at Cronulla. Obviously won the comp in 2016. Some really good, yeah. So I had 3 really good years there. The clinic was still sort of going along really well. We sort of branched out, and we sort of had, I think we had five clinics down the south coast at that point. I'd sort of started up a performance clinic, so a performance arm of which was part physio, part S&C, exercise phys, which was going along quite well. So it's sort of all about trying to create the create the professional environment, allowing the average Joe sports person, the access to, NRL like services. That was sort of the plan of the clinic. So that was going well. The demand of that took over a bit. So after 2018, I jumped out of sport. Well, jumped out of footy for a year and ended up jumping in basketball. Actually, as an S&C role came up with the Illawarra Hawks, which we were involved with the clinic. So I jumped into the S&C with the Hawks, which was awesome for a couple of years, and that sort of tied in with the clinic stuff really well. What are we up to there? I sort of missed footy a bit, so an opportunity part-time came back at the Dragons again. So I jumped back in at the Dragons in 2020 as a medical consultant. So sort of a half-time role there, 2 or 3 days a week, helping physios and trying to give some experience and assistance in the medical department. Transitioned into back to head of medical at the Dragons 2021-22. So right back into footy again. Got the opportunity in 2023 to move away, so moved up to the Gold Coast Titans. Got an opportunity as the head of medical at the Gold Coast Titans. I always wanted to move the family away, so wanted to live overseas or do something different. I thought it'd be a really good opportunity and experience for my kids. Got 2 young, well, not so young now, but teenage girls, and a very supportive wife who's been there the whole time as well, which is another important thing to have a career in sport. I think is a tolerant wife, which I certainly have. So we had a year on the Gold Coast for the Titans, which was awesome. We really loved our time up there. We could have stayed there longer, but then as things happen in footy, opportunity to come back to the Dragons for a third time. It's fun. I got the job back at the Dragons and obviously had the relationship with him at the Sharks and had some success there. So opportunity to come back and transition into the physical performance manager role or high performance manager, whatever we want to call it. But to come back with Whanau and come back to the Dragons and try to build a really good performance team, which we've done, and really good crop of young players coming through. So I'm now in my third year of that role, and it's been a challenge, but it's been fun, and loving every minute.
Fantastic. No, thanks for that, mate. Provides good context for the listeners on, I guess, the topic in terms of not just giving tips for those that want to climb the ladder and replicate what you've done in terms of moving worlds from medical to performance, but also for those that want to crack in and work in high performance sport while working maybe the private sector or managing their own business. And you mentioned Andrew Gray, who and how did he shape your philosophy? But who else have been some strong influences, mentors, if you like, and how have they sort of influenced your practice today?
Well, Andrew Gray obviously was a physio first, but has gone into being a leading sports scientist and strength and conditioning coach. As a high performance manager, he's up there in the top echelon of those practitioners in the world. But I think from Drew, it was all about innovating. Always trying to find a better way to do things, not being satisfied with what we're doing. Challenging yourself, challenging the staff. So that from Drew. Well, the other thing is probably, making sure you're a well-balanced person, so making sure you've got an interest in other parts of your life, whatever it is, playing guitar or surfing or, enjoying craft beer, whatever that might be, but just being a well-balanced person. But other people, mentioned Mick Baines before, a long-time friend and business partner. He was the business brain, so it was always the joke. I looked after footy, he looked after everything else. Scott Mutton was another business partner we had who helped shape my career, particularly in the clinic. Physio wise, Sam Madden at the Sharks, excellent physio, went to the Dolphins, so isn't working in sport anymore. But I've been lucky to work in lots of different teams, working with the Blues in the Origin period, working with Freddie Fittler, Tom Lovell at the Panthers, has had some really good success there. Steph Brennan, physio at the Roosters, spent some time with him with the country teams. yeah, with the Kangaroos last year, I was lucky enough to be part of the Kangaroos squad in the tour of Ashes tour last year. So working with Lockie Penfold, Dan DePasquia, Steve Sartori, one of the leading physios in the NRL. So yeah, I've been really fortunate to be exposed to a lot of really good coaches, physios and S&C coaches over the years. So yeah, been quite lucky.
And I guess reflecting on those different roles, with what you know now, what would you sort of tell yourself 20 years ago, if you knew you were going to be a high performance manager? What would be some of the things you'd like to spend time on, and experience? I guess what are the important skill sets when making that transition from physio to manager?
Well, I think the main first thing is that as a physio, we aren't trained to manage staff and manage people. So that's probably, something we need to be aware of. So I mean, I think having the clinical role and sort of having a bit of a lead role in one of the clinics we ran definitely helped me prepare for that. But yeah, the communication piece, so, making sure you're communicating up and down the chain and giving enough time to staff, I think is probably, making sure you're giving yourself to the staff, more than what you probably think that they need. So yeah, lots of lessons. But yeah, I've definitely learned a few over the last few years. But working with some really good high performance managers, Andrew Gray, one of them, and having him as a mentor now, so that, has helped me transition into the role. Definitely easier than what I would have if didn't have him there.
And that communication piece that you touched on, do you like to have structure with daily, weekly meetings, or is it more fluid with corridor conversations to keep that connection up and keep everyone on the same page? A bit of both, but what's your sort of stance with comms and structure and keeping things fluid?
I've learnt a fair bit over the last few years. Sort of my traditional, well, when I was sort of more on the, people have meetings for the sake of meetings, and in the first year I was more like, we can, probably thought we didn't need to have as many meetings as we did. Since then, I've sort of gone the other way. So I've learnt that some good advice I got from someone over the last few years that the meetings aren't few, the meetings are for everybody else. So not having little structured catch ups, I think, has caught us out a few times when I've thought that everyone's on the same page and we've communicated well, but some people need more communication. Some people need more of an official touch point. So the casual conversations are really important. Training together in the gym. Those casual interactions are important, but actually having a structured time every day where everyone sits down and has an opportunity to ask questions, I think, is actually really important and something I didn't value enough. Definitely in the first year, which we've improved on. But yeah, probably still room to improve in the communication space. But yeah, communication is critical, which is something I probably didn't appreciate. It's definitely something I've had to work on as a skill.
Yep. And the things that can get missed, obviously, there's certain things that you probably can't touch on, but for those listening that are looking to make that managerial jump, or perhaps they are currently in their first year, like yourself a couple of years ago, what are some of the things to be aware of, I guess, that when you're learning your team and how your team likes to work from a workflow point of view, and you're taking on that managerial position, what are some of the common things that can get slipped through the cracks, I guess, in the, when we're living in that fast paced sort of high performance environment where you need answers pretty quickly and you got to move on at a fast pace?
Yeah, well, I guess probably I'm not going to generalize and say that all coaches aren't, all skill coaches, like footy coaches aren't well organized, but they tend tend to be footy coaches aren't always well organised. So minor details that that they leave off. For example, we're doing a pose. One team needs bibs, the other team needs bibs. Who's got the water bottles? So it's organisation between me and the coaching staff's one side of it. So making sure that the drill they've selected is exactly what we think. The sports scientist thinks it's one thing, but the wording of the drill might be slightly different to what we think. What we think the session's going to come out at might be totally different. If the drill selection, if they aren't clear with their communication in what they want to do on the field. So there's the coaching side of it. Within the performance team, there's performance staff, there's interns, there's who's running the water bottles. We're trying to reduce, big thing we're focusing at the moment coming into competition is trying to reduce our rest time, our break time. So not letting the coaches talk. So when we have a break, who's got the water bottles? You'll go onto one team, you'll go on the other team. So getting into fine detail about that to try and so the session runs as smoothly as possible. We've got 2 training fields. What point are we going to the top field? We've got 2 GPS units, 2 sports scientists, who's at the bottom with the rehab. So there is a fair bit going on, particularly in pre-season. So I think the detail, which is something our new sports scientist John Davey has really helped me with, is actually going to that next level of detail and making sure that no stones left unturned, and in trying to run a really smooth session and getting everything going to plan.
What about the advantages? Being able to understand the medical, obviously to a really high level, the fact that you've experienced it. What advantages do you think that brings compared to maybe more traditional high performance manager that's come from only strength and conditioning or sports science sort of work experiences?
I mean, obviously, from a bias view, I do think it is an advantage to be able to sit down with the physios and be able to talk in a bit probably higher level on detail of injury or grading, grading of soft tissue injuries, and probably at a higher level than some S&C trained coaches can. So I do think it's an advantage. It's also been a challenge, I think. So it's probably been a challenge for the physios, I reckon, for the first. I think I'm getting better at it now, but when I transitioned into the role, and obviously coming from the physio role, I think it was pretty hard on the physios, particularly for the first few years. I tried to sort of separate myself from the role, let them do their job, and make their decision without trying to influence what they were thinking too much. But I don't think I got that right, particularly in the first year. So while I think it is an advantage in some ways, I think getting it right is not easy, and I think I'm getting better at that. Offering my experience and advice when needed, but also letting them make that decision and bring it to me, and going from there. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
That does, yeah. Yep. And what about the I guess the communication lines to coaches and medical? You touched on there, like I guess your key role is rehab and the rest of the performance medical team getting understanding of what each drill is with sports science as well, understanding the demands of it and filtering that across. What about like those that are returning back to drills, letting the coaches know who's available to play and those sort of things? Do you manage those comms, and how is that any different to maybe other workplaces, if it is?
I'm not sure if it's different to other workplaces, but the way we work is that I'm sort of one port of communication to the coaches and all things, player availability and who's doing what in what drills. So I'll sit down with the coaches, with the sports scientists as well at the start of the week or the end of the end of the previous week, and we'll sort of plan the following week in a fair bit of detail, but not in fine detail. And then we'll sit at the end of each day. We'll sit down, review the plan that we've made, and then go through the player availability for the next day in a bit more detail. So they'll be able to make teams that they want. I'll explain why guys are in or out. So we're going into the next day with a pretty good plan of what we're going to do and who's going to be available and who's not. Obviously, things pop up. Guys are sick in the morning. Guys might turn up in a state that we don't expect. The physios might be concerned about a few guys. So the few on the run changes we'll communicate in the morning. We usually do that. So we'll have a team meeting. Then after that, we try and buy a little bit of time while I sit down with the coaches or with the head coach essentially at that point, and run through any last minute changes or might be this guy can I do half of this because of this. So I think that point of communicating everything before going on the field, particularly with the coaches, I've learned this the hard way, is really important. So rather than the last thing you want to do is get it on the field and start, they're in a drill or at the start of drill and you're starting to grab guys and pull guys out left, right, and centre. Not that that's an approach that I have or like to do, but that you can get caught out if coaches aren't prepared for what's coming. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about courses or other avenues of upskilling? What have been some of your go-tos over the years around maybe that managerial sort of space or leadership or communication? I guess the art of working in the environment. What have been some of your favourites?
Well, I in terms of formal training, I did the Edith Cowan S&C Masters, so back to 2017-18 through that time, which was useful from a strength and conditioning point of view and help solidify and improve my skill in that area. From a communication, in terms of formal training, I haven't done any formal training, but if I had my time again, I think I would invest more down the communication pathway, whether it's a psychology degree or something similar to that. I think there's plenty of value, well, a lot of value in that space, performance leadership, coaching, how people learn. I wish, if I would have probably spent a bit more time in that area 10 years ago if I had my time again. But what I have done with going from physio to my current role as HPM, we're obviously communicating to bigger groups of people more often. The physio is more sort of one-on-one or small groups. So and speaking to group wasn't one of my strengths, and obviously something speaking well to a group is a really good, really important skill. So I sought out a newsreader actually, and did some over 12 months. We caught up once a month, spent 2 hours once a month, just actually practicing. So going to the newsroom and practicing different scenarios and preparing speeches and doing ad lib stuff, mock interviews, which is really good. It was fun and something that I think really helped me over the last that was sort of 12 months ago. But so really worthwhile. That was an area that I needed to improve, wanted to improve. So that's what I thought was a really good way to do it, a bit out of the box, but it's good fun.
Innovative thinking, like what you were saying, Drew, sort of touched on as an important value. How did you come up with that idea? I've never heard of anything like that before, but it makes a lot of sense.
Through the club, so the Dragons were really sort of helpful in sort of creating that avenue. So Andrew Lancaster, who's the chairman of the Dragons, is also the head at Win TV, the boss at Win TV. So he helped create the relationship with fellow who helped me out. So I was really lucky. The Dragons sort of helped facilitate that. Um, yeah. So again, yeah, really fortunate that, for the support of the club for that experience.
Yep. Yeah. And I imagine a lot of the value in that is actually going and doing it. But I guess for those that also want to work on that skill, what were some of the things, that's tangible things that you noticed that now take into, if it's an important presentation or important um, chat with the group? What are some things that are sort of front of mind that you know is really effective?
Well, like any skill, I guess, that you just got to make sure that you keep it active and keep practicing it. And when you don't do it for a while, it shows that you get a little bit rusty and a bit stale. So practicing the skill regularly. So forcing yourself into situations, whether it's in a group of people, making sure that there's time to contribute, that you're the voice, and you know don't hold back and sit back on your thoughts. Make sure make yourself heard. It's probably one thing. But from a presentation point of view, the key thing is, there's always three things. So three things. What people retain and learn, and just make sure you keep it to three things. Not four or five, but three important things, and go over. Introduce them, deliver them, and go back over them again. So, and it isn't so much, what you say. It's how you say it. So the content is never important as a delivery. So a really well delivered speech, which hasn't got a whole lot of good content or value in the words, but is much better than something that might be really clever and intelligent but isn't delivered well. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Hmm. No, 100%. That doesn't. And on the, I guess, going back to the role in terms of, imagine one of the key pillars is obviously fitness, the group being able to play the game model, and but find that balance, work close with medical team around availability as well. What are sort of three sort of key areas that you'd like to sort of nail for the preseason, which is obviously at the end, pointy end of it now, we're moving into in season, that you feel is you know, an important pillar for a successful preseason for rugby league squad?
Let's Yeah, I guess the key thing, and particularly the back end of pre-seasons, we're trying to exceed game intensity. So trying to make sure the players can handle and succeed at the at the at the physical intensity of the game, and in the high work rate periods of games. So knowing what they are, from a heart rate point of view, from a movement quality point of view, is important, and then making sure that we're in our training, that we're achieving that, multiple times a week. We look at, um, in terms of weekly loads, making sure we're exceeding weekly loads, making sure we're exceeding day loads. So in theory, when the game comes, the game is easy because training's been harder than the game. That's probably a general um, from a general perspective, I guess. Um, uh, yeah. So I have to answer your question.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and the injury side of things, like obviously there's some that you can't mitigate,
Yeah.
the contacts. But what are some important areas to, I guess, reduce the risk of probably the more controllable ones, the soft tissue, based injuries?
Yeah, I mean, having a really good plan is important, particularly from a high speed running point of view, and an overall running load point of view. Those things are obviously really important, but I think a key thing, going back to the communication piece, making sure, making sure I spend time with the physio. So after the squads come in and screened in the morning, often that period can be rushed, and previous coaches, it's all about trying to get them in, get them out, and let's get them on the field. But I think there's a fair bit of value in trying to make sure we take time in that morning period. So you know, we screen the players. They feel like their wellness, hydration, whatever the process is. They go into a meeting, making sure we've got time to one, act on the screening results, talk to the physios, and then make those last minute modifications if we need to the training session. That's something that caught us out, excuse me, a few times. And probably in my role, so I need to be in the player and coach meetings most of the time. So while the rest of we screen and players come in and do their morning routine, go into the meeting with the coaches training meeting. The rest of the performance staff, can catch up and talk and go through things. But I come out of that meeting, which is how we used to do it. Come out of that meeting and sort of, there's 5 minutes of a rush chat with the physios. They haven't got time to really, at the same time the players are coming out, because coaches want the players to go straight from the meeting where they've, been shown what the session's about. So there's less time between that and the field, ideally from a skill and, coaching point of view. So we weren't getting, the time that we needed to, talk about those modifications that we might have needed to the session. So that has caught us out a few times. So, on the back of that, making sure that, when the players finish that meeting, there is a bit more time. So building more time in around screening before or after that meeting in the morning is something that we've brought in, which has helped us out this year, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, just it can easily get caught up in just the momentum of getting on the field and going straight from meeting, but all that information, if you're not using it, is you're
Pointless.
taking something from the player, and if you're not using it, what's the point in doing it in the first place? So that, I think that's something that all departments at times we get caught in.
100%. Yeah, the big thing of it is, we say to the players, we won't ever get you to do anything that we don't think is useful. If we're not going to use, if it's something we're not going to use, then we're not going to get you to do it. So, yeah, really important that if we are whatever we're screening, if making sure that we're acting on it, and there's visible response, to the players that so I've had players in the past that they'll go and if they put a 5 every day on their soreness, and they put in the 2 just to try to check that someone's actually checking it. But yeah, from a player buy-in point of view, and that's a key. Part of my approach and philosophy is, we say to the boys, day one, there isn't anything that I'll make you do that there isn't a good reason for. Trying to educate them on the reasons why we're doing it. Just that's only going to help buy in and make it all worthwhile.
Last one on the in-season and keeping, I guess, the squad in good shape. Obviously, the league's recently extended the bench, which will no doubt be a challenge. Obviously, you got cup grade as well, which has got different demands to the NRL. Players are coming back and forth. What's your sort of philosophy on, I guess, training schedule to start with, in terms of what's your first training session, +2 or +3,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, and what does it look like a 7-day week? But also, what's your stance on how to keep the group in tip-top shape over a long, 27 round season plus finals?
Yeah. So it is a challenge. It's a long season, and with the extended bench, it's going to be a challenge particularly for those players for the 17, 18, 19 that may not get much field time each week, but they're on the bench, so they can't. They're potentially guys that are going to go, several weeks without playing footy, which I think is a real concern, particularly for some of those young guys that, a big part of their development is they need to play. So that's a challenge. But in terms of how we structure the week, so a normal 7-day week, we'll always give the boys the day after the game off. The key component of recovery is sleep, obviously. So giving the boys a good opportunity to sleep. I don't think we get much out of them on the day after the game. If it's a night game and some of them don't get to sleep till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So making sleep a priority on that +1 day. Encouraging the boys to do their own recovery, so getting to the beach, getting to the pool, doing some sort of active movement, and focusing on sleep, rehydration and eating well over that first 24 hours. We'll pretty much always get them in on the +2. So I find you get a bit more out of them on that day. We actually get a bit more quality training in. So we'll meet at the pool in the morning. So 2 groups. They'll do an active recovery. So do some swimming and some pool recovery movement in 2 groups. The guys that need to do a bit more conditioning work, guys that might have some body comp targets, we'll do some more swimming. So aerobic conditioning in the pool on that morning. From that, they'll go to the gym. Last year we did it sort of more of a recovery style lift without sort of a whole lot of intensity. We've shifted that a bit more this year to actually get a bit more, upper body dominant. Guys that have recovered pretty well can do some lower body work depending on how big the turnaround. So it's mainly upper body, definitely recovery focus, so plenty of mobility work, upper body accessory work, hypertrophy work for guys that need a bit more body mass. So the physical part of the +2 sort of finished about lunchtime. Then they'll go into their reviews after lunch for an hour or 2. On short turnarounds, we'll do massage on that day. But a standard 7-day turn, we won't do that. So they'll be out of there at sort of 1-2 o'clock. The +3 we're doing this year, we sort of call it an install day. So sort of setting up for the main session, which is coming the day after. So from a coaching point of view, it's about ironing out things that didn't go right in the previous game, and setting up what they want to do the next day. So reviewing the game, fixing up issues from the game, and then previewing, educating stuff at a fairly low level. So the idea of the install day is that it's sort of moderate intensity, no high speed running, 60 minutes or so on the field, getting ready for the -3, which on a 7-day turnaround is, we're going back to back running days in that week. The other thing they do on that day is a contact wrestle session, depending on the previous game, the intensity of it. It's sort of mainly technical, can be a bit more aggressive if the coaches feel they need to. But we don't lift on that -4 day in this program that we've just started. So going into the -3, which is main session. So the whole idea of the week is setting them up for a quality session on the -3. Normally we'll go field first and then gym in the afternoon, depending on the turnaround. If we need a good lift that week, the lift will always go after. So it'll typically be a full body strength, full body power, but it could be shifted more to the strength side or the power side, depending on the turnaround and what's happened the previous week and come in the week after. But that's our main field session. So we're always just trying to pick that one session where we're chasing game intensity. We're running fast. We're making sure we run fast that day. For pretty much everyone. Yes, that's the -3. We go minus off. We go off on the -2. And then a captain's run on the -1, which is 30 minutes on the field. We went a bit soft on the captain's run last year. It got a bit fluffy, and so big focus this year of making the captain's run sharp and intense. So quality movement, good acceleration. We try not to let them run too fast, but definitely making it shorter and sharper, a bit more purpose to the movement. And we sort of went into a little bit sort of go slow last year, when there's a few players that aren't keen on going too hard on the captain's run, that can spread pretty easy. So that's a focus this year. So captain's run -1, and then game day after that. That's sort of how we're looking to structure our week during the season. The good thing for us is that we've got the reserve grade New South Wales Cup. The last few years, they were often, the alignment with NRL was pretty poor. So we'd have we have guys playing on different days, and trying to line that up with our training next week was a real challenge. So often we had to get the young kids training on, training really hard on plus twos, and getting them all out of whack. And we got a few injuries out of that, to be fair, because sometimes those guys just have to, they've got to be the cannon fodder for NRL sometimes, and they got to take a tough carry. And yeah, it did catch us out a few times with soft tissue injuries for those reserve grade fringe players. But the schedule this year is much more aligned, so we play on the same day most of the time, so it's going to make things a lot easier from that perspective.
Yeah, thanks for that. Great detail on each day and how it sort of flows across the week, and the changes you make with a 6 or a 7 day. It sounds like you've made some iterations. Is it mainly the head coach that you sort of present that to, those ideas, or do you get the leadership guys involved? What's sort of your go-to in terms of getting that balance right between recovery and performance and preparation? Obviously, everyone's going to have different opinions and perspectives. Can't please everyone, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, what's your approach to, I guess, if you thought of an idea that could be effective and you want to bring it in, how do you think managers are best to do that?
Um, well, in this case, so traditionally we've always done the -3, -1 model. Last year, which is what the coaches always work with. Last year, we brought in sort of the -4, -2 model, and ran that for the first half of the year. The coach was on board because we obviously gave him, the good reasons for doing it. But at the end of the day, we weren't doing it right, so we weren't getting it quite right. We ended up flipping back to the old model, and probably suited us better for a few different reasons. But we flipped back to the model. In terms of getting, proposing what I think is the best way for this year, how I did it was sitting down and sort of planning the year out, and just do the whole season, sit in with the coach and just talking through it, which was not an easy process. It took probably, a few months of, sitting him down, going back and forth over it. And then we didn't, in terms of bringing the senior players along with it, definitely once the coach and I were pretty sure of how we wanted to do it, then we brought the senior players in, and made sure they were on board, and which they're a pretty good group, and the buy-in's really good. We explained why, I explained the reasons for why I wanted to do things, and once they were on board, we sort of locked it in, and locking in so giving the players the whole year schedule, not in detail, but what our training days are right up until around 27, which is something that the coaches big on, which we've done the last few years. And bar one or two minor tweaks, we don't change anything through the year, which I think is really good. The players appreciate it. The coaches big on it. And it shows that we've got a plan, and plan we believe in, and we're going to stick to it.
Have you experienced, either be the head coach or the manager, make a significant change to a group? Maybe a couple of losses on the run, have 3 days off, boys, freshen up. We just need to nip this in the bud, or vice versa. Oh yeah, I know we normally have +1 off, but nah, we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. at the club, or any extreme changes to that, due to results or whatever it might be.
I'm with our current coach. No, if it's going to be a change, it'd be more in the not bringing them in. We played shit, boys. You're into change of plan. We're off once. It wouldn't be on that way. It'd be more the other way. So if we're going into a 3-day break, we might play on a Thursday night. There's a Friday recovery session, and we played well. You give the boys a boost, so we don't need to. We'll see you Monday. That sort of thing. So minor changes like that. Aren't uncommon, and things like that aren't going to have a a drastic effect on the program aren't usually an issue. Coaches I've been involved with previously, probably more extreme. For example, um, it's the back end of pre-season. Boys are on the field. They've had a really good session. They've put in on the field. The coach goes, well, they've also got a very important gym session that afternoon. The coach says, "Righto, boys, you've done well today. Righto, you got gym off this afternoon. See you on Monday." We're like, which as you can appreciate, and probably anyone who might be listening, that can have a big effect on preparing these guys from a physical point of view. And that was a key strength session that we just don't get back. So that's probably the other end of the scale.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty lucky at the moment. I've got a coach who's pretty easy to work with. I think in the big scheme of things, can be a pain in the ass at times, like I'm sure most coaches can, but definitely could be a lot worse.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, really appreciate your time, Dan, on your day off, jumping on and sharing with us your experiences. Big believer that success leaves clues. So for those that are looking to make a similar transition, they can listen to this episode, no doubt, note out some gems. Couple of last ones, a little bit off topic. Any pet peeves, anything that sort of fires you up? Might be from a work life perspective or different.
Uh, Part of my feedback in my last performance review that when things don't go, I find it hard to hide when things don't go my way. So I'm trying to deal with peeves a little bit better. But I'm a bit of a grammar and grammar Nazi, they call me. So spelling and grammar in an email or in a text message. If I find an error, then I often write back and give them a little correction to it. So people people don't like that, but it's a bit of a joke. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Spelling and spelling and grammar is probably my pet peeve.
Yep, yep. And what about a
Yeah.
favorite way to spend a day off?
Well, I'm off today, so yeah. I mean, staying away from work is uh is the plan. Isn't always easy, particularly in pre-season. But once we get into the season and yeah, things get a little bit easier. Yeah, surfing, it's something I try to do as much as I can. Good exercise, a good way to get away from the hustle and bustle and real life. But yes, yeah, I'll surf as much as I can. We've got a pretty good group of a bit of a surf crew on the staff at the Dragon, so a few coaches and a few of the performance staff like to get in the surf. So we'll often try to surf in the morning before work on our days off as much as we can, which is a really good thing. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, spend time with the kids. Yeah, coffee, having a beer, yeah, stuff like that.
No, very good. And what about do you have a one opinion or belief that you sort of hold that goes against mainstream thinking or challenges popular consensus?
Um, yeah, I think the whole sort of the hamstring thing. Had our issues last year with a few guys with hammy injuries, and probably something as a profession. Um, we like to think that we're getting better at, but the numbers don't really, the stats don't really support that. So I think getting the strength training and for hamstring prevention and hamstring rehab, I think we probably might be overdoing it from a strength point of view. I think we've been guilty of that a bit the last few years in doing too much from a lower body strength perspective, and probably putting not enough emphasis on on the running and on the high speed running side of things. So I think whether we're getting it, I think we're overdoing the hamstring strength prescription. It's probably the yeah best answer of that. But other than that, yeah, I don't think I'm too controversial in my way of thinking, or yeah, way I go about things.
Hmm. With the hamstring, just to unpack that a bit. So for those that don't have a hamstring history, and we're preparing them, do you feel like we lean a bit more towards developing robustness in the gym and not enough on the field? or is it more those that are going through rehab? We spend too much time
It's probably
rehabbing in the.
more, yeah, it's probably more on the rehab side of things, or more less resilient guys. Have got a history of hamstring injury. I think I think we filled the cup a little bit more in my experience. Maybe it's just my in my experience, but filling the cup too much with in the gym with hamstring strength load and not enough on the field. That's probably caught us out a few times. Whether that's consistent through other codes or through other clubs, I'm not too sure.
Yep, yep. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and obviously we're recording this middle of February,
Yep.
2026, mate. What's on the horizon? What are you most excited about for the year, both professionally and personally, if you like?
That was a fair bit going on. Yeah, so we've fly to Vegas in a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. So we've got lucky enough to play round one over there in Vegas. So we've got a week over there next week, which will be exciting and a good challenge for us. We're also, from a work point of view, we're moving into a new high performance facility at the end of March. So yeah, it's something the Dragons have been working towards for the whole time I've been there, the last 15 years. So it's actually finally almost ready now. So we're moving to a new facility, which is going to be a really good thing for the club. They're bringing sort of the Sydney and the Wollongong end together in a state of the art facility, similar to the one that you guys have there at Para. So that's exciting. On the home front, yeah, we're just in the process of trying to move houses. So bought a house, trying to sell a house. We're in a unit. The lift in the unit hasn't been working for 2 weeks, so we're on the eighth floor, trying to get up and down eight levels, 16 flights of stairs every day, and trying to sell an 8th floor unit when the lift doesn't work. It's been a challenge.
Hmm.
So that's happening. So I'm leaving my wife to sort all that out as I go to Vegas next week. So
Nice.
as I said earlier, it's having a tolerant and supportive wife is very important. Something I've been lucky to have. So yeah, she's got to deal with selling a house and moving while I jet off to Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, plenty happening, but yeah, it's exciting time to be at the Dragons. So looking forward to the boys getting on the field and hopefully showing what they can do.
100%. No, awesome, mate. Yeah, well, yeah, thanks again for jumping on. For those that have any follow-up questions, is there a best place to get in contact?
Email's probably easiest. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not the most active social media man, but yeah, email dlawson@dragons.com.au is probably the easiest. I'm probably best on email. We'll yeah, reply to anyone if anyone's got any questions. I'm not sure on what my LinkedIn and all that stuff is, but
Yeah,
yeah,
easy. Okay, no.
email will be easiest.
Email's easy. So I'll add the email address that you mentioned there in the show notes. So those driving or wherever you're listening in will be able to access it pretty easily there if you've got any follow up. But yeah, thanks for everyone that's tuned in. If you tuned in at the end here, this will live on our YouTube channel, so you can wind it back to the start and listen to Dan's journey in high performance sport. And our next live chat, it's actually our first second episode with someone with Tim McGrath. Hear about his NFL experience. He's back in the country, so should be good. Thursday, 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's Thursday, the 5th of March. So I look forward to seeing you guys then. There we go.